1st and ends 30 September. So we're in FY11 right now, which will end shortly, if you will. That's used to be that the fiscal year began July 1, but the Congress said, we don't have enough time to do our work. We need another 3 months. Well, they still don't have enough time. We still won't have a appropriations bill come October 1. We didn't have one last year. We won't have one this year. So somebody's not doing their job. I won't say who. So anyway, in 09, fiscal year 09, the Congress appropriated $3.5 trillion. 20% of that went to the Department of Defense, 24% of that went to the Navy, 16% of that went to NAVC and the affiliated PEOs with NAVC. Out of that $26 billion, about $7 billion got spent in-house, in the government, on government people's salaries, whatever. And the balance, around $20 million, got spent in the private industry building these ships. This is just a breakout by those program executive offices for the different types of ship, except this program executive office doesn't exist anymore. That's now been changed to the Littoral Combat Ship Program Executive Office. So that's the feel for the dollar value involved. I told you earlier it was billions. It truly is billions. Okay, next few charts are just talk to a few of the ships, acquisition programs, if you will, bless you. The Arleigh Burke class, DDG-51, very capable ship, expensive. Multi-mission guided missile destroyer, construction. It's equipped with probably the world's most advanced combat system. I don't know if you could see this, but this is where the combat system radar, it's a face. It's on 3 faces of this, I guess you could call it deck house or structure. So the radars don't turn anymore for this. They actually turn electronically. And it's integrated with a missile system, very effective combat system, if you will. These were the construction on these, or the program began back in 1988, finished up, and then they restarted it in 2009. And they started with hull number 51. They're up to hull number 115. So there are quite a few of these there. So they're both in production and out there serving the fleet, the Arleigh Burke class. That ship is about 500 feet long and displaces about 10,000 tons. This is the new class of destroyers called the Zumwalt class. You'll notice that the hull form is very different than the Arleigh Burke. This is called the tumble home hull. You guys are probably familiar with that, right? The purpose being to keep the signatures down on the ship. You might not agree with me, but when you're trying to keep the signatures down, whether it's on a surface ship or acoustic signature on a submarine, it gets to be an expensive proposition, but we need to do it. And so very different hull form. And the models of this hull form were tested many times at the Carwrap division, if you will. So this program was started in 2009. Again, it's a very stealthy ship with a fully automated gun system. It's still in production, not deployed with a fleet. 3 of these. Why? Because they're expensive, like around $1 billion, just as a ballpark figure for each ship. Okay, so only 3 of them. Okay, this is a fairly recent design to deal with coastal or littoral warfare. There are 2 different competing designs that the Navy has decided to go forward with, kind of unusual. Navy usually down selects to 1 design and goes with that for the class. Here they've decided to go with 2, at least for a while. That may eventually get narrowed down to 1 once they get some performance experience with these ships. But the one is called the Freedom. That's the one in the upper right, if you will. That's a monohull made out of steel. It's about 400 feet long. Let's see. Yeah, 380 feet long, displaces about 3,000 tons. Very capable ship, and again, it's primarily for littoral, coastal defense, high speed, over 40 knots, if you will. Both of these type systems deploy unmanned systems to do their mission. So if they're doing mine warfare, they're going to deploy an unmanned module to do the mine detection and eventually neutralization, which is a first. Well, maybe not a first. Let me think about that. Now, you could probably think of a torpedo as an unmanned system, right? Or a missile as an unmanned system. This is a little bit different than what the Navy's used to. So the Freedom, it was commissioned in 2008. The Independence, January of last year. The 3 and 4 numbered hulls are in construction, and they've recently awarded contracts for hulls 5 through 8. So this ship is still in production, hasn't been deployed yet with the fleet. Oh, I might mention, I think I said that. This is a multi-hull, but it's built out of aluminum. Aluminum presents some problems in the marine environment. Technical problems in terms of corrosion, cracking, that kind of stuff. And the last ship I want to show you is from the San Antonio class. This is amphibious assault transport type ships the Marines make heavy use of. Has a flight deck for a Marine Corps helicopter as well as a well deck. I'll show you the type of vehicle that goes into the well deck to take the Marines from the ship to the shore, if you will. It's about 680 feet long and displaces about 25,000 tons. There's going to be 9 of these ships, some of them still in production, some of them out with the fleet. This is an explosion, underwater explosion going off as one of the non-destructive tests that the Navy does to look at the systems on the ships, how they respond to the energy put in the water by an underwater explosion like a mine or a torpedo. Okay, I think there's one more shot before we take a break. So, we talked about all these folks. Not a whole lot about Congress, but what's Congress interested in these ship acquisition programs? They want local jobs, right? That helps them to get elected. They don't want to commit budgets for future Congresses. So they want some flexibility in the funding profile. So the next Congress could decide how they want to spend the money. They like delivery on time, but what they're most concerned about is the budget. Bring the program in on budget or under budget. And they desire the risk to be managed within the budget. You'll see that the Navy puts additional money into the budget to allow for risk, things they don't anticipate, if you will. So what's the Navy want? They want a sufficient number of appropriately capable ships to do the missions that they have to do. They want a long-term commitment of funding. That's in opposition to the Congress, who doesn't want to commit future Congresses. But they still want some profile flexibility in the budget, the Navy does. They want it all. They like on-time delivery, that's good, but they want to be in under budget or on budget. And they implicitly accept the risk by building some fat into the budget, okay? Which the Congress doesn't like. Industry, they want a cash flow stability so that it'll enhance their returns, their return on investment over the long term. They want stable requirements. Don't keep changing the requirements as we're building the ship so that they can deliver on time, because they're rated on that. They want profile stability so they get maximum return. They are totally risk averse. They have no interest in taking on risk. Taking on risk means they can lose money. And so they have no interest in that. What does the program manager, the guy in the program executive office, desire? He wants the requirements early so he gets started. He wants the requirements to be stable, don't keep changing the requirements. He wants full funding, built in with that funding, some funding that covers a level of risk. He wants the funding profile to be stable, but he's also risk adverse. So if I have a new technology, I'm in the lab, I have this great technology, and I try to go sell it to the program manager, he's not likely to take it unless you have clearly demonstrated that this thing is going to work, and it's going to work reliably over a long period of time. So that's a challenge for the technologists to get it to a point, get the technology to a point where the program manager and industry will accept that technology and put it into the design. I'm going to focus on two of those divisions under the Surface Warfare Center, the Carwrap Division in Panama City. For some crazy reason, somebody decided we ought to call these, what used to be laboratories and R&D centers, we ought to name them by the geographical location, which tells you nothing about the organization. But anyway, so be it. You'll see on one of the charts that there is bureaucracy within the government. And either you need to be determined to change it, which sometimes could be like, you know, batting your head against the wall, or just accept it and move on. You can still get your job done within the bureaucracy, the bureaucratic nonsense that goes on. Okay, so this is the geographical locations of all of the divisions under both the Surface Warfare Center and the Undersea Warfare Center under the Naval Sea Systems Command. So the Carwrap Division, their main headquarters is in West Bethesda, Maryland. They have a major presence at the former Philadelphia Naval Shipyard also, which I'll talk about. And Panama City Division is in Florida. And you can see where all the other divisions are located. This does not necessarily show the presence of all these divisions, like the Carwrap Division has a major site here in Idaho, one in Tennessee. And so this just shows you primarily where the headquarters are located. So they're all over the country. And they do have branches throughout the world, if you will, depending upon what's going on. Okay, so what's the responsibilities of warfare centers? They got to provide really the technical stuff, the people, the engineering, the products associated with that to equip and support the fleet and the warfighter. They are the Navy's principal research, development, test, and evaluation activity for surface ships and submarine systems and all the subsystems that go on those ships or submarines. RDT&E, by the way, research, development, test, and evaluation, is also a budget term. The Congress appropriates money by that. You'll see that later. They also responsible for what they call depot maintenance, just maintenance of the systems out there, as well as in-service engineering. And so you'll see, I'll use this term later, they're full spectrum, these organizations. Most of them are, from cradle to grave, from science and technology to in-service engineering. You'll see that on some of these other charts. So let's focus now on the Carwrap Division. I said they have presence in Philadelphia as well as West Bethesda and other parts of the country. So the current commander is Captain Heidi Piper, former astronaut, just recently took over command of the Carwrap Division. The technical director is Mr. C.F. Snyder, and I won't go through the other names on here, but this is what I'm going to talk about that's shown on this chart. I'm going to talk about this office, the Technology and Innovation Office. That's the office that I used to head up. By the way, I didn't retire in 2004. I retired in 2008. But that's okay. You're making me older than I really am. And I'll talk a little bit about these 5 technical departments, try to give you some feel for what goes on in those departments. Okay, what's the mission of the warfare centers? They are for the Carwrap Division, sorry. They are the center of excellence for ship and ship systems. They provide the people, the facilities, the tools, what have you, to do RDT&E, support the acquisition process, do in-service engineering. They also involve in logistics for the Navy and integration. And they also support the maritime industry, non-military kinds of stuff that goes on by the Coast Guard or other commercial maritime ventures. They serve the fleet of today, those operating forces that are out there now protecting the country. The fleet of tomorrow, the things that are being designed and built now, like some of those ship acquisition programs I showed you, but also the Navy after next. So they're doing the idea generation, the technology development for the Navy that you're going to see 50 years from now. That's important responsibility for these folks. This is an aerial view of the West Bethesda site of the Carwrap Division, highlighting some of their, or most of their major experimental facilities, the most prominent being the David Taylor Model Basin, which, believe it or not, that's what they used to call the Carwrap Division, the David Taylor Model Basin. Admiral David Taylor is the one that was on site when they put this together. This is a 1/4 mile long towing tank, hydromechanics towing tank, to look at resistance of various hull forms, powering requirements. They could do normal speeds. They have carriages that run on rails that are built to the curvature of the earth. And they could do high speed, upwards of 70, 80 knots on some of those carriages, using models, using ship models, if you will. When the weather's not good, it's also a good place to do some jogging. There's a nice trail along the towing tank that you could get out of the elements. I'm going to say a little bit about Anechoic Structural Evaluation Lab and a couple of those other facilities, if you will. I might point out it's like a college campus, so you should feel right at home. It really is. Once you get through the gate, getting onto the base, it's like a college campus, if you will. Some fringe benefits, it runs parallel to the Potomac River, that's Potomac River. And parallel to the Potomac River is the C&O Canal, Chesapeake and Ohio Canal, where they used to take goods from up, Cumberland, Harper's Ferry down to Georgetown. And you put it on barge, and they'd have mules that walked on the earth, on what we now call the towpath, because it was towing the barges down the canal. Well, they don't do that anymore, obviously, although they have a museum up in Maryland which shows you one of those old barges. And I think they actually bring out some mules to show you how they did it. But anyway, it's nice for exercise. If you like to jog, walk, bicycle, and that runs all the way up to Harper's Ferry, all the way down to Georgetown. So if you're really ambitious, you get good workout. I still use it. Although I don't work there anymore, I still use it, even though I live in Virginia, because it's just a nice environment. There are also some major facilities up at the Philadelphia site. Philadelphia site, again, is at the former Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. It's located along the Delaware River, and I'll talk to a few of those facilities later. So what are the products and services that the Carwrap Division typically focuses on? Well, they're a linkage between the technical community and the warfighter. They do development, integration, and maintain warfighting systems. They provide solutions to enable smart buy decisions. So you got the technical expertise within the Navy. So when somebody comes to try to sell you something, some type of a system, ship system, we could evaluate, they could evaluate it and provide advice to the Navy whether it makes sense to make that acquisition. They verify that the ships and weapon systems are safe and effective. They provide life cycle support throughout the life of the ships. They're also a linkage with the Joint Force, meaning Navy, Air Force, Army, if you will, the Coast Guard, and also national security community. They do the things for the warfighter, that industry, they can't do it because they don't have the technical capability or the technical experimental facilities. The industry won't do it because there are some liabilities associated with it. Remember, industry doesn't want to take any risks. Or they shouldn't do it. It's an inherent government responsibility that industry should not be taking on. And so those are the kinds of things they do. Remember, I said full spectrum, from science and technology to in-service testing and evaluation. This is how they operate from a financial point of view. They're part of what they call the Defense Working Capital Fund. So basically, customers reimburse Carwrap for the products and services that they provide. And so you have customers like the program executive offices, NAVC, the Army, could be industry, want Carwrap to do something, do tests, do whatever. And they have to cover the costs, so overhead costs as well as direct costs, labor, materials, contracts. And then the products that the customer get, there's a list shown there, the kinds of things they get. But that's how it functions. No money ever changes hands, obviously. It's all done electronically, and hopefully it all works out. There is a fund, actually, they call it the corpus, that is there all the time, so that while the work is being done, the people could get paid, they could buy the materials, la-di-da-di-da, and then they get reimbursed later on by the customer. There's a network, Carwrap division, gets involved with many partners. Universities, a lot of universities shown up there, industry, other government agencies, internationally, a lot of other countries. I had the fortunate experience to work on a program for several years with the Royal Dutch Navy, joint project looking at composites, failure of composites, glass reinforced plastic kind of composites for ship structures. Very, 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 very nice program. The Dutch have very good technical people in niche areas, and so it was a nice marriage to do that, and got you some foreign travel both ways. So lots of opportunities like that working for one of these Warfare Center divisions. Okay, now I'm going to shift. That was kind of part of looking at the Carwrap division from the top. Now I'm drilling down further into this office called the Science and Technology Office. Again, I said, oh no, maybe I didn't say that. Science and technology is not a budget term. It's kind of a subcategory of research, development, test, and evaluation, which is a budget term. But most of the RDT&E goes to acquisition programs. There's roughly 19.3 billion in RDT&E in the fiscal year 2009. Out of that 19 billion, 1.8 billion was science and technology funding, which includes, on the right-hand side of that chart, I can't reach up there, basic research, kinds of things that go on at universities, fundamental knowledge that's being developed, applied research, which they have numbers for these, 6.2, which is where you're now taking that fundamental knowledge and trying to connect it with a Navy problem or opportunity. And then advanced technology development called 6.3, where you integrate technologies into some subsystem and evaluate it in a relevant environment and demonstrate that it works so that you can now move it along to transition to an acquisition program. In fiscal year 09, the Carwrap division had $70 million of science and technology money, which I'm sorry, I omitted when I was showing you which chart? The Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Research, Development, and Acquisition. There was a little organizational box on there, a direct report called the Office of Naval Research. The Office of Naval Research reports directly to the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Research, Development, and Acquisition. And that Office of Naval Research manages that science and technology pot, 1.8 billion. Said Carwrap had 70 million in 09, which was about 5 to 6% of their total budget. Years back, that used to be over 100 million. And we've complained for years trying to build that up, and it's tough. Okay, the kinds of things, products and services in the Science and Technology Office, they work with the science and technology customers, the people at ONR, Office of Naval Research, or DARPA. DARPA stands for Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. They do a lot of way out stuff, if you will. They were right in there with the development of the internet, if you will. Al Gore wouldn't agree with that, but they were there. I guarantee you they were there. That office also facilitates transitioning technology, S&T, to acquisition programs. They have a strong liaison with the intelligence community. One of the things we want to do by working with the intelligence community is to preclude technological surprise. We don't want the other guys developing something technically superior to us that we don't know about and we're surprised about. That's not good. So there's a strong connection there. Then he also supports what they call laboratory-directed R&D. That's a discretionary pot of money, fairly small pot of money, but he doesn't have to go to O&R or anybody else to get permission to how he spends that money. He has the discretion, the technical director, to spend that on things that he thinks might be useful for the Navy after next. Innovation Center. Beth mentioned she's a very interesting project that I was involved with. Well, the Innovation Center, what they do is they take 5, 6, 7 people, different technical disciplines, put them together in a co-located environment for 6 months roughly to work on an idea problem. One of the ideas, and that gets funded out of the Science and Technology Office. When I was there, one of the ideas we had, which Beth was referring to, is a system of unmanned systems. So you would have unmanned aircraft, unmanned surface ships, unmanned undersea vehicles, all cooperatively working together autonomously, being able to sense the environment, change their behavior to do assortment of Navy missions. We worked on that for a couple of years without any money. It was funded by the laboratories, several laboratories working together using overhead funds, and tried to sell it as a funded project, multi-million-dollar project to O&R, and it didn't quite pass muster. But it's going to happen. I believe it's going to happen. And that's another thing you should remember besides the bureaucratic nonsense that goes on. Things take time. If you believe in them, it'll get done, but things take time. They don't happen quickly, if you will. This is an idea we had, matured it to some degree. There are pieces that are being funded now. I told you about unmanned system. You know how they operate Predators, right? Somebody on the joystick. Actually 5 or 6 people operating the Predator. The idea is to have one sailor monitoring these multiple unmanned systems and only interjecting him or herself into the process when they need to do the control. So again, an idea. Those are the kinds of things that get done in the Innovation Center. Very, very career rewarding experience, I believe. Sometimes the people that spend time there don't want to go back because they kind of, you take them out of the country, put them in the city, and they didn't want to go back anymore. So, okay, technology transfer. There's effort going on to take the technology developed in the Navy, as long as it's not sensitive stuff, and make it available to the private sector for commercial application. So we encourage people applying for patents. Okay, we have a patent attorneys on that are part of the workforce at Carwrap. That's true of the other labs. And they also get involved with cooperative R&D with industry. Industry will send them money to help them work on problems. And there's also a pot of money called Small Business Innovative Research that the Congress sets aside to help small businesses with their ideas. And folks like at the Carwrap Division will work with those small businesses to help them mature those technologies so they can bring them forward. So if you're working at the Carwrap Division and the guy head of that office is Scott Littlefield, you have an idea for a research program, go see him. He has some seed money probably, if you think it's worthy. If you have an idea that might be patentable, go see him or the person that handles patents there, Dr. Teeter. If you get a patent and the company decides they're interested in your patent for commercial application and they want to license it, you get the royalties. You get royalties from it. So there's that opportunity also. If your customer has a problem that might require an S&T solution, go see Scott. And then if you need information on foreign adversaries' capabilities, again, the liaison with the intelligence community is there to help you with that. Okay, that's all for Science and Technology Office at Carwrap. Now those other 5 departments. This is the ship systems integration and design. I'm going to go through these quickly. You have them in your handout. You're going to get some more detail if you attend the seminar on the 13th of September. The Carwrap person will be here to give you more detail. This is kind of things they get involved with: naval architecture, ship design. They do a little science and technology. They have a division, a department. Well, I forget what divisions, departments, whatever. What? Well, in the code, yeah, code doesn't tell me anything though. It's a part of the organization of the department that gets involved with small craft, the kind of crafts that are special warfare folks. They're down and around the Norfolk, Virginia area. Very exciting. They actually go out on these things and work closely with the special warfare folks. They do concept development. They have a capability to do life cycle cost estimating for things that are not very mature. That's hard to do. Very hard to do. It's bad enough to do something for a system that's been designed, but they're talking about concepts, estimating costs. Okay, the hydromechanics department. They do RDT&E for the Navy, government agencies. This just shows some of their work in there. This is in the maneuvering and seakeeping basin, where you got a huge basin. I forget the dimensions, but it's hundreds of feet on both sides, with wave makers on two sides, and you could create all kinds of seaway conditions in that. As a matter of fact, I think at one time they created the waves associated with Hurricane Camille, which is pretty big sea state. This is their autonomous submarine model, and there's some propeller work in a water channel. These are the guys that do the work in that long towing basin, if you will. Here's some of their products and services. They get involved with worrying about maneuvering control of submarine systems, hull resistance and powering of surface ship systems. Seakeeping is very important. I'm not sure what model that is, but that's another example of seakeeping in the maneuvering and seakeeping basin. Propulsors for submarines and surface ships. By the way, they work closely on propulsor work with, particularly for submarines, with the Applied Research Lab at Penn State. All the loads associated with waves, whether it's just going through waves normally or waves breaking over the deck of a ship, green water. Very sophisticated computational fluids dynamics methods, if you will, tools, software to do predictions. And they go out on the ships, full-scale trials, to measure the performance, the hydrodynamic performance of those ships. This shows some of their facilities. You've seen some of these already. The towing tank, one of the carriages, that's a maneuvering seakeeping basin, autonomous submarine. You could see the list here. They are valued at about $1.4 billion. The Navy gets involved with a lot of classified work on these systems, if you will. But the most secret work that they've ever done, particularly in the towing tank, that quarter-mile facility, was the work they do for the America's Cup teams. When America's Cup team is in there with their hull design, nobody goes in there, not even the technical director. That's how secret that work is. There's what's the right word I'm thinking of? Anyway, there's millions of dollars that go into those designs, and of course, they want to win. So they want anything known about their America's Cup design. You know what I'm talking about, America's Cup, right? Those sailing ships, no? That go out there and compete every 4 years. Used to be up in Newport, Rhode Island. The U.S. used to win it all the time until the Australians came along with a better hull design. And I can't remember the last time the U.S. won it. I think we won it when we put out a multi-hull design out there, which there were all questions about, and the tests were in San Diego. But it's very, very, very secretive work. Okay, survivability structures and materials department. Again, full spectrum RDT&E, including life cycle support. These are the areas they get involved in, if you will. There are backup charts for each one of these, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. Survivability I'll mention, because when we talk about survivability, we're not talking about survivability strictly in the seaway environment, you know, waves, that kind of thing. We're talking about survivability against the effects of weapons. So underwater weapons,